There's a version of you that the world has never seen, not because it doesn't exist, but because it has been buried under distraction, buried under noise, buried under the constant need to react. And the truth is, most people will never uncover it because they are too busy responding to everything around them. Look at your life for a moment. How many times today did you act with intention, and how many times did you simply react? A notification appears, you check it. A message comes in, you reply instantly. Someone posts something, you feel something. You don't decide your focus, it gets pulled. You don't control your emotions, they get triggered. You don't move with purpose. You move based on what happens to you, and slowly, without realizing it, you become predictable, and predictable people are easy to control. That is the hidden truth no one tells you. You are not being overpowered. You are being influenced. Quietly, repeatedly, constantly, because anything that can trigger you can control you. Anything you need can be used against you. If you need validation, someone can withhold it. If you need attention, someone can manipulate it. If you need approval, someone can deny it. And the moment that happens, you lose power, not because you are weak, but because you are dependent. Now imagine something different. A man who does not react instantly. A man who does not chase attention. A man who does not explain himself to be understood. He sees everything, but he is not pulled by it. He hears everything, but he is not moved by it. There is a space between what happens and how he responds, and inside that space is control. That control is what separates ordinary from dangerous. Because the most dangerous man is not aggressive. He is not loud. He is not emotional. He is controlled. He cannot be rushed. He cannot be baited. He cannot be distracted, and because of that, he cannot be controlled. This is the man people notice without understanding why. The man who says less, but means more. The man who moves less, but achieves more. The man who is not chasing the world, because he has already mastered himself. But here is where most people get it wrong. They think this kind of power comes from talent, from intelligence, from some rare advantage. It doesn't. It comes from removing weakness, from eliminating the things that make you easy to influence. Distraction. Emotional dependency, inconsistency. These are not small problems. They are entry points. They are how the world gains access to you. And once it has access, it has control. So if you want to become dangerous, you don't start by adding more. You start by removing the need to react, removing the need to be validated, removing the need to be understood. And what remains is something rare. Focus that does not break, discipline that does not fade, detachment that cannot be exploited. This is not self-improvement. This is self-mastery. And once you step into it, you stop living like everyone else. You stop reacting. You stop chasing. You stop depending. And you start operating on a different level, a level where your mind is your own. Your actions are deliberate. Your presence alone changes the room. The question is not whether this version of you exists. It does. The question is, are you willing to let go of everything that's keeping you weak so you can finally become it? You think you are in control. That belief is where the problem begins. Because control is not what you say, it is what you demonstrate under pressure. And under pressure, most people don't act, they react. Watch closely. A message arrives. You check it immediately. A notification appears. Your attention shifts. Someone says something negative. Your mood changes. None of these were decisions. They were reactions. Automatic, immediate, unquestioned. And that is exactly how control works. Not through force, but through predictability. If someone can predict how you will respond, they don't need to control you directly. They already know what you will do. Think about how easily your focus is interrupted. You sit down to do something important. Within minutes, your attention drifts. You check something quickly. You scroll for just a second. You respond because it feels urgent. But most of it is not urgent. It just feels that way because your brain has been trained to respond. Rewarded for checking, rewarded for reacting, rewarded for staying engaged. And over time, you lose the ability to stay still. To stay focused. To stay in control. This is not accidental. It is engineered. Every system around you is competing for your attention because attention is influence. And influence is power. The more your attention is controlled, the more your behavior can be shaped. You think you are choosing what to watch, what to feel, what to do, But most of those choices are guided, subtle triggers, carefully designed loops, emotional hooks that pull you back in, and the more you engage, the more predictable you become. You laugh at the same things, you get angry at the same things, you react in the same patterns. And patterns are weaknesses because patterns can be studied, and once they are understood, they can be used against you. This is how influence works at the highest level, not by forcing action, but by shaping reaction. The moment you react without thinking, you reveal control. You show exactly where you can be moved, and once that is visible, you are no longer operating freely, you are responding on command. The first step to breaking this is awareness. You have to see it. You have to notice how often you react without choosing, how easily your focus is pulled. How quickly your emotions shift. Because once you see it, you create a gap, and that gap is where control begins, not by reacting faster, but by reacting less, because the less you react, the harder you are to predict, and the harder you are to predict, the harder you are to control. Where your attention goes, your power follows. That is not just a statement, it is a law. Most people break this law every single day without realizing it. They give their attention away freely to anything that demands it, to anything that flashes, vibrates, or calls for a reaction, and because of that, they lose power, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, consistently. Attention is not just about what you look at, it is about what you build. Every time you focus on something, you are investing energy into it. You are strengthening it. You are giving it life. So if your attention is scattered, your results will be scattered. If your attention is shallow, your progress will be shallow. But if your attention is controlled, your outcomes become controlled. This is where most people fail. They try to work while being distracted. They try to build while being interrupted. They try to focus without eliminating noise, and it doesn't work, because focus requires depth. And depth cannot exist in distraction. Imagine two men, both start at the same level, same intelligence, same opportunity, same time. The first man cannot sit still. He works for a few minutes, then checks something. He gets bored, switches tasks. He feels discomfort, looks for stimulation. His attention is constantly shifting. So his progress is slow. Inconsistent. Fragmented. Now look at the second man. He sits down and locks in. No phone, no interruptions, no distractions. He works through discomfort. He ignores the urge to check. He stays with the task longer than anyone else. At first, the difference is small, barely noticeable, but over time, it becomes extreme. Because focus compounds. Every hour of deep work builds on the last. Every session strengthens his ability to stay locked in. While the first man is restarting again and again, the second man is going deeper. And depth creates advantage. This is the part most people don't understand. Focus is not about doing more. It is about becoming more precise, more controlled, more dangerous. Because the man who can control his attention can control his output. And the man who controls his output controls his results. Focus is rare because it is uncomfortable. It requires you to sit with boredom, to face resistance. To stay when your mind wants to escape. And most people avoid that. They choose stimulation over discipline. Comfort over growth, distraction over depth. So they stay average. Not because they lack ability, but because they lack control over where their attention goes. If you want to separate yourself, you don't need to be smarter. You don't need to be more talented. You need to be more focused. Because in a world full of distraction, focus is not normal. It is power. And the man who learns to hold it becomes very difficult to compete with. Anything you need can be used against you. That is the rule most people never learn. Because most people don't see their needs as weaknesses. They see them as normal. Wanting approval, wanting attention, wanting to be understood. It feels human, and it is. But it is also dangerous. Because the moment you need something from the outside world, you give that world power over you. Think about how people behave when they are attached to an outcome. Their emotions rise. Their focus narrows. Their decisions become reactive. Because they are no longer acting freely. They are acting under pressure created by their own dependency. Now imagine a man who wants the same outcome, but does not need it. His behavior is different. He is calm. Measured. Unrushed. Because nothing is at stake internally. If he wins, he moves forward. If he loses, he still moves forward. That is detachment. Not indifference dot, not numbness dot, but independence, the ability to engage without becoming controlled. This is where power begins to shift, because the man who is not attached cannot be manipulated through attachment. He does not chase validation, so it cannot be used to pull him. He does not fear rejection dot, so it cannot be used to control him. He does not depend on outcomes, so he cannot be pressured by them dot, and that makes him stable. While others rise and fall emotionally, he remains grounded. While others react impulsively, he responds deliberately. This is what makes detachment powerful dot. It removes leverage, and leverage is what people use to control you. Every negotiation, every interaction, every dynamic is influenced by who needs what more. The one who needs less has more power dot always, because they can walk away, and the ability to walk away is what most people lack. They stay in situations that weaken them. They tolerate behavior that disrespects them. They accept outcomes that limit them, because they are afraid of losing something. But the man who is detached is not afraid, because he is not dependent. He has already separated his identity from the outcome dot, so he can act clearly, without fear, without desperation, without hesitation. This does not mean you stop caring dot. It means you stop clinging. You still pursue. You still build. You still aim for results, but you are not controlled by them dot. You are not defined by them. You are not broken by their absence. And that creates a different kind of presence dot, calm dot, unshaken dot, unpredictable. Because when a man cannot be emotionally cornered, he cannot be strategically controlled. Detachment is not about losing desire. It is about losing dependency dot, and once you lose dependency, you take back power. The kind of power that cannot be negotiated away. The kind of power that does not rely on anyone else dot, the kind of power that makes you untouchable. Motivation is unreliable dot. It comes and goes. Some days you feel strong. Some days you don't. Some days you are ready to work. Some days you look for excuses. And if your actions depend on how you feel, you will always be inconsistent. This is where most people fail. They wait to feel motivated. They wait for the right mood dot, the right energy, the right moment dot, and because that moment rarely comes, they delay dot again and again. But the men who become dangerous do not wait. They operate differently. They do not rely on motivation. They rely on discipline, but not discipline as something they do. Discipline as something they are. This is the shift. When discipline becomes identity, your behavior changes automatically. You don't ask yourself if you should act. You act, because that is who you are. A disciplined man does not negotiate with himself. He does not debate whether to show up. He shows up even when he is tired, even when he is distracted, even when he feels nothing, because his identity does not change with his mood. This is what creates consistency, and consistency builds power. Every time you follow through on what you said you would do, you strengthen something inside you dot, trust dot, not in others, but in yourself. You begin to see yourself as someone who executes, someone who finishes, someone who does not break under pressure, and that belief is built through action dot, not thinking dot, not planning dot, not waiting dot, but doing over and over again. This is why discipline feels like armor, because every action you take adds another layer. Every time you resist distraction, you become stronger dot. Every time you push through resistance, you become sharper dot. Every time you choose action over comfort, you reinforce your identity, and over time, it becomes automatic dot. You no longer struggle to start. You no longer rely on feeling ready. You simply move. This is self-mastery, not controlling others, but controlling your own behavior, your impulses, your habits, your decisions. Because once you can control yourself, everything else becomes easier. The distractions lose power. The excuses lose meaning. The resistance becomes irrelevant. And you become someone who cannot be stopped, because you do not stop yourself. This is the difference between those who talk and those who build. One waits dot, the other acts. One depends on emotion, the other depends on identity. And identity is what makes discipline permanent dot, not temporary dot, not occasional, but constant. And constant action creates unstoppable results. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it with words, with explanations, with reactions, because silence feels uncomfortable dot. It creates space dot, and in that space, people feel exposed dot, so they talk. They explain themselves when no one asked. They react when no response is required. They reveal more than they should. And every time they do, They give something away. Information. Emotion. Intention. This is why silence is powerful, because it does the opposite. It hides. It protects. It controls what others can access. The less you say, the less people know, and the less people know, the harder it is to predict you. Prediction is control. If someone understands your patterns, your thoughts, your reactions, they can influence you. But if they cannot read you, they hesitate. They guess. They become uncertain, and uncertainty shifts power. Think about the man who speaks less in a room. He is not ignored. He is observed. People watch him more carefully. They try to understand him, because what is not revealed becomes interesting. Silence creates that effect. It draws attention without effort. But silence is not just about speaking less. It is about reacting less. Because reactions expose you faster than words. When something provokes you and you react, instantly you reveal your triggers. You show exactly what affects you. And once that is known, it can be used again and again and again. This is how people gain control, not by force, but by finding your emotional patterns and pressing them. Silence interrupts that process. When you don't react, you don't reveal. When you don't reveal, you don't give access. This is what makes silence strategic. It creates a barrier, a layer between you and the outside world. Not to isolate you, but to protect your position. The silent man observes more than he speaks. He listens. He studies. He understands. While others are busy expressing, he is busy learning, and that gives him an advantage. Because information flows toward the quiet, people reveal more when you say less. They fill the silence themselves. They expose their thoughts, their intentions, their weaknesses, and all you have to do is listen. This is why silence is not weakness. It is discipline. It is control over your impulse to speak. Your impulse to react. Your impulse to be understood. Because not everything needs to be said. Not every moment requires your input. Not every situation deserves your energy. Silence allows you to choose when to speak, what to reveal, how to respond. And that choice is power. The more controlled your communication becomes, the more controlled your presence becomes. You stop being reactive. You become deliberate. And deliberate men are not easy to manipulate, because they do not give away control with unnecessary words or emotional reactions. They hold it, and that changes everything. Before anyone tests your intelligence, before they test your strength, before they test your strategy, they test your emotions, because emotions are the fastest way to control a man. Make him angry, and he loses clarity. Make him insecure, and he seeks validation. Make him afraid, and he hesitates. And in those moments, he is no longer in control. He is reacting. That is where power is lost. Not in failure. Not in difficulty, but in emotional instability. Most people don't see this. They think their emotions are natural, something to express, something to follow. But uncontrolled emotion is predictable behavior, and predictable behavior is easy to exploit. This is why emotional invincibility is rare, because it requires something most people avoid. Self-awareness. You have to notice what you feel without becoming it. You have to separate the emotion from the action. This is where control begins. You still feel anger, but you don't act on it immediately. You still feel pressure, but you don't collapse under it. You still feel fear, but you don't let it decide for you. You pause, and in that pause, you regain power. This is not suppression. Suppression hides emotion, but it builds pressure, and eventually, it breaks. Control is different. Control is understanding what you feel and choosing what you do. That choice is everything, because once you control your response, you control the outcome. People will try to provoke you. To test you. To see how you react, not always directly, sometimes subtly, through comments, through behavior, through pressure. They are looking for a reaction, because a reaction gives them information. It tells them where your limits are, what affects you, what moves you. And once they know that, they can use it. But when you don't react, they lose that access. They don't know what you are thinking. They don't know what you feel. They cannot read you. And that creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates distance. And distance removes control. The emotionally invincible man is not numb. He feels everything, but he is not ruled by anything. His anger does not control him. His fear does not stop him. His pain does not define him. He processes it, learns, from it. And moves forward. Calm. Composed. Unshaken. This is what makes him dangerous. Not aggression, not intensity. But stability. Because in a world full of emotional reactions, the man who remains controlled becomes unpredictable. And unpredictable men are very difficult to defeat. In a world where everyone is constantly available, constantly responding, constantly showing themselves, absence becomes a weapon. People value what is scarce, and yet most give themselves away freely. Attention, time, presence without thought. But the man who disappears strategically, who steps back when everyone expects him to step forward, gains power silently. Absence creates curiosity. It creates tension. It makes others wonder, question, and even chase. It gives you influence without a single word. The trick is subtlety, not coldness, not avoidance, but intentional withdrawal. A pause that speaks louder than any action. Consider the person who stops replying immediately. At first, others feel ignored. Then, they begin to notice the void. They question, they reflect, they anticipate. Your absence begins to shape their thoughts, their feelings, their behavior. This is psychological leverage, a scarcity principle in action. Powerful people use absence to protect focus, to command attention, and to create respect. They know that availability is not always virtue. In fact, constant presence often dilutes influence. Absence is also a shield. It prevents others from predicting your patterns, understanding your triggers, or exploiting your behavior. When you are selectively present, you control the narrative, you control engagement, you control the perception of yourself. This does not mean withdrawing from life. It means being strategic, being deliberate, being untouchable. People will try to fill the gaps. They will project meaning onto your silence, and in that projection, you gain unseen authority. You control what they imagine. You influence without effort. Absence turns your life into a subtle chessboard. Every move calculated, every pause deliberate, every silence meaningful. In a world drowning in noise, the man who vanishes briefly becomes unforgettable, because absence is not emptiness. It is leverage. It is attention redirected. It is influence multiplied, and influence is power. True transformation rarely happens in the spotlight. Growth, power, and mastery are forged in silence, in isolation, in the unseen moments that no one applauds. The world rewards spectacle, but the most dangerous minds are built in the shadows. Imagine a man stripped of validation, recognition, and comfort, alone, facing his weaknesses without distraction. Most would crumble, most would quit. But the one who chooses to endure, he builds strength silently, piece by piece. Darkness here is not despair, it is opportunity. Without the gaze of others, you are free to confront yourself without fear. Every flaw, every weakness, every emotional dependency is exposed, and only by facing them head-on can real power emerge. Isolation sharpens perception. Struggle refines strategy. Pain becomes a teacher. In these unseen moments, habits are hardened. Focus is intensified, and discipline becomes identity. This is the laboratory of transformation where ordinary men become untouchable. Stories of silent reconstruction echo throughout history. The entrepreneur who spends years learning alone, mastering skills before anyone notices. The strategist who studies human behavior in secrecy, developing a mind others cannot predict. The warrior who trains tirelessly when no one is watching, becoming lethal in both skill and patience. Growth in darkness is uncomfortable. It triggers doubt, loneliness, and fear, but it also creates resilience. Emotional endurance becomes second nature. You learn to rely on yourself, not on applause, recognition, or validation. Your mind becomes your fortress. During this phase, every small victory counts. The silent acquisition of knowledge, the small habits repeated daily, the subtle mental shifts that compound over time. These are invisible to others, but unstoppable. Internally, by the time the world notices, you have already transformed. Darkness is also a test of commitment. Many start, but never finish. They seek shortcuts, external approval, or quick fixes. True power comes from patience, persistence, and enduring the grind without acknowledgement. When you embrace this hidden phase of growth, you stop being reactive. You stop seeking permission. You stop being influenced by trends, distractions, or the opinions of others. Rebuilding in darkness is not about hiding. It's about constructing a foundation so strong that when you emerge, No obstacle can shake it. It is the deliberate, patient, unseen work that separates the predictable from the untouchable. And once this reconstruction is complete, your focus, detachment, and discipline become unassailable, ready to dominate a world that never saw you coming. Power, focus, and discipline are meaningless unless they converge into a single, unbreakable mindset. The untouchable mind is not forged overnight. It is the product of relentless self-mastery, emotional control, and unwavering internal authority. It is the state where no external force can dictate your actions, sway your decisions, or destabilize your composure. At the core of this mindset lies ownership of your thoughts, your emotions, and your time. Most people drift through life like leaves in a storm, tossed by circumstance and other people's opinions. The untouchable, however, moves deliberately, anchored by self-direction. Every decision, every action is a reflection of internal power, not external pressure. Imagine a man in a crowded room, surrounded by chaos, gossip, and distractions. Others flinch at criticism, rush to respond, or chase approval. He remains calm, unreadable, and fully present. His silence is not weakness, it is strength. His attention is selective. His energy is guarded. His actions deliberate. This is the untouchable mindset in motion. Detachment amplifies this state. Emotional independence is no longer a concept, it is a lived reality. Praise, criticism, failure, or success no longer dictate mood or self-worth. This freedom creates space for clarity, strategy, and precision. You can act decisively because nothing outside your control can shake you. Focus transforms from a habit into a lens for life. You see what truly matters and ignore everything else. Distractions fade. Superficial conflicts become irrelevant, and your attention compounds into power. Every thought, every action, every decision aligns with purpose. Distraction is the tool of the weak. Focus is the weapon of the untouchable. Discipline becomes identity, not effort. You act because it is who you are, not because you feel motivated. Resistance, temptation, and adversity no longer intimidate. They are tests to reinforce your commitment. The untouchable mind thrives in discomfort, seeing struggle as refinement rather than threat. Stories of untouchable figures echo through history. Leaders who remained unshaken by opposition. Strategists who predicted outcomes years in advance. Artists who created masterpieces while ignoring critics. Their minds were not merely disciplined, they were untouchable. They internalized control, emotional independence, and purpose to the point where external chaos could not penetrate their focus. This mindset also cultivates subtle influence. People are drawn to those who are unreactive, confident, and composed. When others are desperate, reactive, or chaotic, the untouchable operates from calm authority. Silence, observation, and selective action become tools of power. Influence is not demanded, it is inevitable. Adopting this mindset is not about ego or superiority, it is about self-possession. It is about removing the strings others use to manipulate you. It is about becoming untethered from expectation, attachment, and fear. And when you reach this state, you operate in a zone where few dare to follow but many are compelled to watch. The untouchable mindset is the culmination of all previous sections: focus, detachment, discipline, silence, emotional mastery, and strategic absence. Together, they form an internal fortress, a mental architecture that cannot be breached. When this mindset is complete, life no longer dictates your terms. You define them. You act not out of reaction, but out of purpose. You move through the world like a shadow, present, unseen, and unstoppable. And the truth is, few will ever understand the depth of control you now hold. Knowledge is abundant. Books, videos, podcasts, and courses flood the modern mind with endless information. Yet, knowledge alone does nothing. A mind overflowing with insight, but devoid of action, is like a sword kept in a sheath, sharp, but useless. Execution transforms potential into power. The untouchable understand this truth. What you know is irrelevant until you act. Every plan, every strategy, every principle only gains value when it is applied. Waiting for the perfect moment is a trap. The world rewards those who move while others hesitate, who strike while others debate, and who create results while others consume content. Imagine two men. One reads endlessly, memorizes tactics, and debates theories. The other reads less but executes consistently, learns from mistakes, adapts, and grows. In time, the second man surpasses the first in every measurable way. Action compounds where knowledge stagnates, Execution demands courage, the courage to act without certainty, to risk failure, and to embrace discomfort. Most fear making mistakes, fearing judgment or loss. The untouchable sees mistakes not as failure, but as feedback. Every misstep is data, every challenge an opportunity to refine skill and reinforce discipline. This principle applies across life, business, strategy, self-mastery, relationships. Ideas without implementation are illusions. Action is the ultimate metric of power. Knowledge becomes power only when it is wielded deliberately, precisely, and consistently. Psychologically, execution builds momentum. Action fuels confidence, sharpens focus, and strengthens resilience. It turns abstract concepts into tangible results. Those who execute consistently create a psychological advantage. Others observe, react, and attempt to keep pace, while the executor remains ahead. Untouchable in capability and presence, execution also bridges the gap between ambition and reality. Every unacted plan is wasted potential, every hesitation a missed opportunity. The untouchable knows that perfection is a myth, decisive action is reality. The weight is to lose influence, control, and growth. Ultimately, this section reinforces a simple but brutal truth. Knowledge without action is powerless. Execution is not optional, it is survival, dominance, and transformation. It is the final skill that converts mental mastery into tangible, unstoppable force. Everything we've explored leads to one inescapable truth: power, control, and mastery are not given, they are taken, earned, and maintained through focus, detachment, discipline, and decisive action. The untouchable man does not react, he observes. He does not chase, he commands. He does not wait, he executes now. Imagine yourself standing at the threshold of your own potential. The distractions, the opinions, the emotional entanglements, they all fade when you choose to move silently, deliberately, and relentlessly toward mastery. Each habit of focus, each moment of detachment, each act of discipline builds a fortress around your mind and your life. This is no longer theory, it is practice, identity, and inevitability. Power is quiet, influence is subtle. The untouchable mind moves unseen, yet the impact is undeniable. Others may underestimate you, try to provoke you, or attempt to control you, but your internal command remains unshaken. You have cultivated a psychological immunity. Nothing can distract you, nothing can manipulate you, nothing can break your rhythm. Reflect on your journey, every distraction you resisted, every emotional dependency you let go of, every disciplined action you took, they are the bricks of your fortress. You are no longer swayed by the chaos around you. You have become the calm within the storm. The world measures strength in noise and spectacle, yet the true power lies in silence, in precision, and in the ability to act when others are frozen by hesitation. This is more than self-improvement. It is a transformation of identity. You are no longer someone who dreams of control, you are someone who embodies it. The untouchable mindset is now yours. Internal mastery is your weapon, and execution is your proof. As you step forward from this moment, remember, the journey does not end here. Every day presents choices, distractions, and challenges. Your task is to maintain your focus, preserve your detachment, sharpen your discipline, and execute without fear. Do this consistently, and the invisible forces that once controlled you will bend before your will. This is the final command: own your mind, control your emotions, act with purpose, and become untouchable. Let the world move around you, while you move within yourself, calm, deliberate, unstoppable. Your transformation begins now. Asterisk.